Opinion, the good news and the bad news about the new housing law. That's the headline of a guest essay in the New York Times by Jared Bernstein and Jim Parrott. Bernstein served as chair of President Biden's Council of Economic Advisers, and Parrott was a senior advisor to the National Economic Council under President Obama. They're writing about the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, the first major housing package to become law in decades, and one that passed with impressive bipartisan support. The authors say this law has real potential to put a dent in the nation's affordable housing shortage. That's the good news. If carried out as intended, it breaks through regulatory sludge holding back construction, creates financing and building incentives, and helps close the supply gap, driving up rents and pushing homeownership out of reach. But here's the bad news: President Trump let the act become law without his signature, dismissing it as a yawn. Not a great sign his administration will dedicate the considerable resources needed to implement it. Most of that work falls to the Department of Housing and Urban Development (HUD), which must establish pilot programs, reports, rulemaking, and industry guidance. Problem is, after last year's purge of agency staff, HUD is down about 30% of its workforce in many key offices. The Urban Institute outlines that making good on the law's potential will almost certainly require bringing on more policy specialists, lawyers, accountants, and technologists, people to crunch numbers, draft regulations, overhaul technology, and get approvals through a gauntlet of lawyers at HUD and the White House Office of Management and Budget. Unfortunately, the administration's budget director, Russell Vought, is an advocate for shrinking the federal government. Just last month, a group of senators wrote to Vought demanding he release $750 million in withheld funds allocated for affordable housing. Despite a broad mandate from Congress, the administration appears poised to shrug at the opportunity to address an issue critical to millions. So Bernstein and Parrott argue that with limited resources, the dedicated civil servants left at HUD should focus on the parts of the law with the best chance of generating new housing. First on that list, modernizing rules for manufactured housing, often called mobile homes. Historically, federal standards required a permanent steel chassis for safer portability. But that makes little sense today. Few manufactured homes are moved after installation, and the steel chassis increases costs while generally precluding basements, second stories, and other variations consumers want. The authors suggest this is where HUD can make real progress even with constrained capacity. That's the essay, a clear-eyed look at a promising law and the political and bureaucratic headwinds it faces. Thanks for listening.